Maya Evans stepped into the gleaming marble lobby of the Grand Crest Hotel, her heart buzzing with a mix of excitement and anticipation. It was supposed to be the highlight of her business trip, a weekend stay in one of the city's most exclusive hotels while attending a prestigious fashion conference. Her tailored suit hugged her frame with elegance, and her sleek, professional demeanor mirrored the refined atmosphere of the hotel. The soft click of her heels echoed across the polished floors as she made her way to the reception desk. Just as she opened her mouth to greet the receptionist, a blonde woman in a designer coat sauntered in behind her. Before Maya could speak, Heather, the hotel manager, stepped forward from her spot near the entrance. Her eyes, cold and dismissive, flicked over Maya before landing on the blonde woman with a saccharine smile. "Excuse me, miss," Heather said, bypassing Maya entirely. "Let me assist you first." Maya froze, the words hitting her like a slap. "I was here first," she said, her voice calm but firm. Heather's smile tightened. "I'm sorry," she said, her tone laced with condescension. "But this area is reserved for our important guests." Maya's chest tightened. "I'm a paying guest," she said, standing her ground. "I have every right to be here." Heather's eyes narrowed. "If you don't leave, I'll have security remove you." The threat hung in the air like a thick fog. People around the lobby shifted uncomfortably, some averting their eyes while others watched with curiosity. Humiliated, Maya felt the sting of injustice course through her veins, but she refused to let it break her. Pulling out her phone with steady hands, she made one call. "Hey, Dad," she said softly. "I need your help." Within 30 minutes, the atmosphere in the hotel shifted dramatically. The front doors swung open, and in walked Robert Evans, Maya's father and the city's mayor. His commanding presence was unmistakable. His dark eyes swept the room and locked onto Heather. "Are you the manager?" he asked, his voice cool. Heather straightened. "Yes, sir. How can I help you?" By explaining why my daughter, a paying guest, was humiliated and threatened in your lobby, Heather paled. I didn't realize she was the mayor's daughter?" Robert said. "Or didn't realize she was just as deserving of respect as anyone else here?" The lobby fell silent. The journalist who had accompanied the mayor started recording, capturing every word. An investigation followed, uncovering a pattern of discriminatory behavior at the hotel. The hotel's management was replaced, and Maya was invited to share her experience at a citywide forum on equality. Standing at the podium, Maya took a deep breath. "Discrimination is often subtle, but its impact is undeniable," she said. "Change starts with accountability, and today, we take that step." The crowd erupted into applause. Maya walked away from the event with her father by her side, knowing that her voice had made a difference. Maya stood there, invisible in a space that should have welcomed her like anyone else. She had walked in first, ready to conduct her business like a paying guest, yet she was treated like an afterthought. No explanation. No acknowledgement. Just silence. The woman at the counter completed her transaction with ease, offering Heather a grateful smile that said, "Thank you for making me feel important." Without a glance at Maya, she walked past as if nothing unusual had happened. Maya didn't move. She felt heat rising in her chest, but she forced herself to take slow, deliberate breaths. The sting of humiliation burned beneath her calm exterior. As the woman exited, Heather turned back to Maya with a tight-lipped smile. "Sorry about that, ma'am. Let me assist you now." Maya's eyes locked on Heather's. She didn't flinch, didn't reveal the hurt beneath the surface. Instead, her voice came out steady, firm. "Why did you help her first?" Heather's smile wavered. The forced politeness couldn't hide the crack in her composure. "Well, ma'am, it's our policy to prioritize our exclusive guests." "Exclusive guests? You mean people who look like her?" Heather froze, her expression betraying a flicker of guilt. It was gone in an instant, replaced by a defensive edge. "It's just how things are done here, ma'am. Nothing personal." Maya's heart raced, but she refused to back down. Heather's dismissive tone stung, but Maya knew better than to react in anger. Instead, she responded with an icy calm. "Nothing personal? You're saying it's just business to ignore me because of how I look?" Heather's jaw tightened. "I think you're reading too much into this," she said. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other guests to assist." Maya's breath caught in her throat. The audacity. The casual cruelty. She gripped her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen. In that moment, she knew exactly who she needed to call. "Dad," she said when the line connected. "I need your help." Robert Evans, the city's mayor, listened as Maya recounted the situation. His voice remained calm, but she knew her father well enough to detect the restrained anger. "Stay there," he said. "I'll handle it." Maya sat in the lobby as whispers spread through the hotel staff. She could feel the stares, the curiosity, the judgment. 20 minutes later, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the entrance. Mayor Robert Evans stepped out, his face a mask of controlled fury. He marched through the lobby, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on Heather. "Are you the manager here?" he asked. Heather straightened, her expression morphing into one of professional politeness. "Yes, sir, I'm Heather Bennett. How can I help you?" "By explaining why my daughter was treated like she doesn't belong here," he said, his voice low but lethal. Heather's eyes widened. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. "Discrimination has no place in this city," Mayor Evans continued. "I hope you understand the gravity of the situation." The lobby fell silent. Phones appeared in guests' hands, cameras rolling. The mayor turned to Maya and extended a hand. "Let's go, you're not staying here." As they left the hotel, reporters gathered outside, already aware of the incident. Mayor Evans faced the cameras. "This hotel has demonstrated a complete disregard for the principles of equality and respect. Effective immediately, the city is terminating its contract with the establishment." The crowd erupted in questions, but the mayor ignored them, placing a reassuring hand on Maya's shoulder. Days later, a new headline appeared: "Hotel manager resigns amid discrimination scandal." The hotel promised to implement diversity training and hired a new manager, a journalist known for exposing systemic bias. Maya stood in front of her office window, the city stretching out beneath her. She thought about that day, the shame she had felt, the helplessness. But she also remembered standing her ground. She hadn't backed down. She turned from the window, picked up her phone, and began drafting a social media post. "Sometimes," she wrote, "change begins the moment you refuse to be invisible." The post went viral within hours, inspiring thousands who had faced similar situations. Maya Evans had walked into that hotel as just another guest. She walked out as a voice for change. Maya felt her stomach churn with subtle indignation. It was a simple sentence, masked by politeness, but the implication was unmistakable. Heather didn't think Maya belonged in one of the high-end rooms. The way Heather said, "clients of your caliber," made it clear she had already made an assumption about Maya's status based on nothing more than her appearance. But Maya, ever the professional, simply smiled tightly and replied, "I'm fine with the room I've booked, thank you." Her eyes flickered to the keycard Heather handed her, but her mind raced. It wasn't just the words, it was the way Heather looked at her, like she was a lesser guest, as if she didn't deserve to be there in the first place. Still, Maya took a deep breath, adjusted her shoulders, and accepted the keycard. Her professionalism shone through despite the tension hanging in the air. With a final nod and a tight smile, she turned toward the elevator, determined not to let Heather's judgment derail her. After settling into her room, Maya took a deep breath, letting the comfort of the luxurious space wash over her. The room was spacious and quiet, a perfect retreat for someone gearing up for an important conference. But there was one thing she couldn't shake: the lingering encounter with Heather, the hotel manager. Maya had stayed in many high-end hotels before, but there was something about the way Heather had looked at her, the silent judgment, the condescension, that bothered her. She tried to brush it off, telling herself that these moments, however uncomfortable, were part of the journey. But the uneasy feeling clung to her like a shadow. She decided to head down to the hotel lounge to unwind before the conference. A quiet moment in a luxurious setting might help clear her mind. As she entered the lounge, she took in the rich decor, soft lighting, plush armchairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the vibrant city skyline. It felt like a space where she belonged. Maya chose a comfortable chair and sank into the softness, letting her eyes close briefly as she tried to center herself. But when she opened them, her gaze locked with Heather's across the room. The manager's stare was unmistakable, cold, calculating, and disapproving. Maya could feel it like an invisible weight pressing down on her. Heather's eyes lingered just a second too long before she began walking toward Maya. The air seemed to thicken with each step. Maya's heartbeat quickened. She straightened in her seat, bracing herself for whatever was about to come. When Heather finally spoke, her voice was laced with thinly veiled condescension. "Excuse me, ma'am, but this area is reserved for important guests only." Her eyes flicked over Maya, her expression a mixture of disdain and satisfaction. "I'm afraid you can't just hang around here." Maya was stunned. Her chest tightened, and for a moment, she couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had done nothing wrong. She was a paying guest, just like anyone else, with every right to be in this lounge. "I'm a guest here," Maya said, her voice steady despite the frustration building within her. "I have every right to be here." Heather's smile tightened. "This area is for clients who are part of the hotel's elite clientele," she said. "You'll need to head back to your room or find somewhere else to wait." The words hit like a slap. Maya's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She had worked too hard and come too far to be diminished like this. But before she could respond, a voice behind her interrupted. "Is there a problem here?" Maya turned to see an impeccably dressed older man standing nearby. Heather's face paled as she recognized him. "Mr. Thompson," Heather stammered. "I was just explaining our lounge policy." "Ms. Evans," the man said, addressing Maya with a warm smile. "I was hoping to find you here. Our CEO mentioned you'd be attending the conference. We're honored to have you stay with us." Maya stood, shaking Mr. Thompson's extended hand. "Thank you," she said, her voice regaining its calm confidence. "Heather," Mr. Thompson said, turning to the manager, his expression hardening. "Ms. Evans is one of our keynote speakers and a valued guest. Please see to it she receives every courtesy." Heather's mouth opened and closed in shock, but she quickly nodded. "Of course, sir." Maya met Heather's gaze one last time. The manager's earlier arrogance had crumbled into humiliation. Maya gave her a small, knowing smile before walking away with Mr. Thompson, her heels clicking confidently against the marble floor. Respect isn't determined by appearances, Maya thought. It's earned, and demanded when necessary. And today, she'd made that clear. Maya's palms stung as her nails dug into her skin, but she didn't care. She wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time. Not after everything she'd worked for. Taking a deep breath, she rose to her feet, her eyes locking onto Heather's with unflinching resolve. Anger simmered beneath the surface, but more than that, there was a calm, steely determination. She refused to be humiliated, to be made invisible, not in front of these people, and certainly not because of Heather's narrow-minded assumptions. "I'm not going anywhere," Maya said, her voice clear and unwavering. "I'm a paying guest here. I have every right to be in this lounge, and I will stay until I'm ready to leave." Heather's eyes narrowed, her lips twitching into a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "If you don't leave," she said, her voice icy, "I'll have you removed." The threat hung between them like a suffocating fog. Maya felt the sting of injustice, the familiar weight of being judged for who she was, not what she'd done. She clenched her jaw, willing herself to stay composed. Arguing with Heather was futile, her mind was made up the moment Maya walked through the door. Without another word, Maya turned on her heel and walked out, her steps measured even as humiliation gnawed at her insides. She reached the hallway and leaned against the wall, breathing deeply to push back the tears threatening to spill over. She had worked too hard and come too far to let someone like Heather make her feel small. Footsteps echoed behind her. Maya turned, expecting to see a guest or hotel staff passing by. Instead, it was Heather, striding toward her with self-satisfied determination. A uniformed security guard followed close behind, his expression unreadable but his posture tense. Heather stopped in front of Maya and crossed her arms. "Ma'am," she said, voice dripping with condescension. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises." Maya's heart skipped a beat. "Excuse me?" she asked, disbelief coloring her tone. "I left the lounge, just like you asked. I'm in the hallway, heading to my room. What exactly am I being removed for?" "Defiance," Heather replied with a smirk. "You've refused to follow instructions and disrupted the environment for our valued guests. I am a guest." Maya shot back, her voice rising despite her efforts to stay calm. "I paid for my room. I have a reservation. What rules have I broken?" Heather's eyes gleamed with satisfaction as she nodded toward the security guard. "Escort her out." The guard hesitated for just a second before stepping forward. "Ma'am, please come with me." Maya could barely breathe as the guard placed a firm hand on her elbow and guided her toward the exit. Heat flooded her cheeks, and she kept her chin high, refusing to give Heather the satisfaction of seeing her break. Outside, the sun was blinding. Maya stumbled to a nearby cafe, collapsed into a chair, and buried her face in her hands. She'd been treated like a trespasser, an imposter in a space she'd rightfully paid to access. Her heart raced with indignation, shame, and a deep, aching sadness. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with trembling hands and opened the camera. The lens captured her tear-streaked face and the opulent facade of the hotel in the background. "This is Maya Evans," she said, her voice shaking but determined. "I just got kicked out of a hotel I paid for because the manager decided I didn't belong. I was humiliated, escorted out like a criminal, all because someone looked at me and assumed I wasn't worthy of being here." She posted the video with a caption that read, "Discrimination is alive and well. Let me tell you what happened to me today." Within minutes, comments flooded in, support, outrage, and personal stories from people who had lived similar experiences. Maya's phone rang. She swiped the screen, recognizing the caller immediately. "Maya," her father's voice came through, steady and calm, but she could hear the edge of concern. "What's going on?" Her breath caught in her throat. "Dad," she whispered, "I need your help." Mayor Robert Evans had spent his entire career fighting for equality and justice. And now, his daughter needed him to fight for her. Maya felt her voice tremble slightly as she spoke into the phone, but she took a deep breath and steadied herself. "Dad, I just got kicked out of the hotel I'm staying at. The manager, she said I didn't belong. She told me I wasn't the right kind of guest for their exclusive clientele." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When her father's voice finally came through, it was low and firm. "What do you mean, kicked out?" Maya recounted the entire ordeal, the cold stares, the condescending tone, the humiliating confrontation in the lounge. She described how Heather, the manager, had treated her like an intruder from the moment she'd checked in. She shared the feeling of invisibility, of being judged not by her conduct or credentials but by something far more superficial. Her father's silence spoke volumes. Maya knew this wasn't just about her being mistreated, it was about the deeper, more insidious assumptions that some people still carried. "Stay where you are," her father said, his voice now resolute. "I'm coming down there right now. Don't go back inside until I get there." "Thank you, Dad," Maya whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of her emotions. I can't believe this is happening." "Don't thank me," Mayor Robert Evans said. "This is unacceptable, and that hotel is about to understand exactly who they're dealing with." Maya sat down at an outdoor cafe across the street, trying to collect herself. She stared at the luxurious hotel facade, the golden sign gleaming under the city lights. This hotel had promised elegance and comfort but delivered humiliation and exclusion. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, the warmth grounding her as she waited. Minutes later, a sleek black SUV turned into the driveway. Her father stepped out with the unshakable confidence of a man who'd spent his career fighting for justice. Tall, distinguished, and immaculately dressed, Mayor Evans exuded authority with every step. As he reached her, he placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" he asked, his eyes softening. Maya nodded. "Yeah, just ready to handle this." "Good," he said. "Let's go." Together, they crossed the street and entered the hotel lobby. The shift in atmosphere was palpable. Conversations hushed. Staff members straightened their postures. Maya spotted Heather at the front desk, her confident demeanor faltering the moment she recognized the man walking toward her. "Miss Heather," Mayor Evans said, his tone cool and controlled. "I need to speak with you. Now." Heather's face paled. Mayor Evans, I didn't realize she was your daughter. I'm so sorry for the misunderstanding." Maya's jaw clenched. There it was again, the assumption that her worth was tied to her connections rather than her inherent right to be treated with respect. "So if she weren't my daughter, this behavior would be acceptable?" Mayor Evans asked, his eyes locked on Heather. "You made her feel unwelcome in a place where she had every right to be. You embarrassed her in public and then tried to have her forcibly removed. I didn't mean." Heather stammered, her gaze darting to the growing crowd of onlookers. The hotel's general manager, alerted to the commotion, appeared at the desk. "Mayor Evans, I sincerely apologize for this situation," he said, wringing his hands. "This does not reflect our values as a hotel." "Then prove it," the mayor replied. "This is not just about an apology to my daughter. It's about the systemic assumptions that led to this incident in the first place. I expect to see changes. Real ones." The general manager nodded vigorously. "Of course, sir." Two security officers arrived and stood beside Heather, who shifted uncomfortably. "Heather," the manager said, "please step into the office. We need to discuss the consequences of your actions." Heather's face crumpled as she realized the gravity of the situation. With shoulders slumped, she followed the officers out of the lobby. As she disappeared from view, the tension in the room dissipated. Mayor Evans turned to Maya, his expression softening. "Let's go, sweetheart." They walked toward the exit, heads held high. Outside, the cool night air wrapped around them. Maya squeezed her father's hand. "Thank you," she said. "You stood your ground," he replied. "I'm just proud to stand beside you." As they walked away, Maya's phone buzzed with notifications. The incident had been witnessed, recorded, and shared. The world was already reacting. People were weighing in, some expressing outrage, others sharing their own experiences. Maya took a deep breath. The night had been painful, but it had also become something more, a moment of truth that might just spark a larger conversation. What would you do if you faced a situation like Maya's? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story compelling, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about resilience, justice, and the unyielding power of standing your ground. The next morning, Maya's phone buzzed with an unexpected call. It was Mr. Clark, one of the executives she'd originally planned to meet at the hotel conference. His voice carried a tone of admiration. "Miss Maya," he began, "I just wanted to commend you for the grace and strength you showed during such an unpleasant situation. The way you stood up for yourself with dignity didn't go unnoticed. You're exactly the kind of person we want to collaborate with." Maya's heart raced. "Thank you," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Actually, that's the reason for my call," Mr. Clark continued. "We're hosting an exclusive business conference next month for a select group of industry leaders. We'd like to invite you to join us. Given what happened, we want to give you another opportunity to connect with some key players. Everything has already been arranged, including your travel and accommodations." Maya stifled a scream of excitement. "I would be honored to attend. Thank you so much." "Great. Expect your platinum invitation in the mail. We'll see you soon." As the call ended, Maya leaped off her bed and spun around her room in a whirlwind of joy. This was more than just a conference, it was a doorway to new possibilities. The conference turned out to be a career-defining event. Mr. Clark publicly praised Maya for her composure and professionalism during the hotel incident. People were impressed, not just by her story, but by the authenticity with which she carried herself. Unlike others who flaunted their connections or lashed out when wronged, Maya had chosen resilience and grace. By the end of the event, she'd signed a groundbreaking contract expected to catapult her company into the billion-dollar league. Later that evening, the attendees gathered at the hotel bar for a celebratory cocktail hour. Maya stood in the corner, sipping her drink and reflecting on how surreal everything felt. The sting of humiliation from that awful night had morphed into a story of triumph. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared in her peripheral vision. Heather. The woman who had publicly humiliated her. Heather's usually confident posture was gone. She stood wringing her hands, eyes darting nervously. "Maya," Heather said softly. "Could we talk, privately?" Maya hesitated but nodded. She followed Heather to a quieter section of the lounge, her heart guarded. Heather sat down, visibly struggling to find the right words. "I owe you an apology," she said, voice trembling. "I was wrong. The way I treated you was inexcusable." Maya remained silent, watching Heather with cautious curiosity. Heather took a shaky breath. "I grew up in a diverse neighborhood, you know? Had friends from all backgrounds. But my great-aunt Agnes, she was influential in my life. She filled my head with this toxic belief that people who look like you were a threat. She said if I wanted to maintain my status, I had to keep others in their place. I believed her." Tears glistened in Heather's eyes. "I'm not telling you this to excuse what I did. Just to explain. That night at the hotel, it was like her voice was in my head, and I let it dictate my actions. But seeing you stand your ground and the consequences I faced afterward, it made me realize how deeply wrong I've been. I'm so sorry." Maya's chest tightened. She saw genuine remorse etched across Heather's face. But she also knew how easy it was for people to regret the consequences of their actions, not the actions themselves. "Thank you for sharing that," Maya said after a long pause. "I can appreciate how hard it is to confront beliefs ingrained from childhood. And I accept your apology. Not for your sake, but for mine. Carrying around bitterness only gives power to the hurt." Heather's relief was palpable. "Thank you, Maya, truly." Maya nodded, but as she walked away, an uneasy feeling lingered. Was Heather genuinely remorseful or simply trying to salvage her reputation? Only time would tell. That night, Maya lay in bed, reflecting on everything. The humiliation, the confronts, Heather's confession. Through it all, she'd learned a valuable lesson. Strength isn't just about standing your ground in the face of injustice. It's about choosing grace when bitterness beckons. And Maya was determined to carry that strength into every corner of her life. The tension in the air was palpable as Maya scrolled through the news articles flooding her phone. The hotel was at the center of a community-wide backlash. Some commended Heather for owning up to her actions, others dismissed it as a performative farce. The hotel's executives were torn: fire Heather to appease the public or give her a second chance in the spirit of redemption? Maya's family wasn't spared from the fallout either. Her father, Mayor Robert Evans, and her mother faced sharp criticism. Some accused them of being too lenient on Heather, while others praised their advocacy for restorative justice. The debate grew louder each day, threatening to drown out the real issue, the deep-seated biases woven into the hotel's past. Meanwhile, across town, investigative journalist Alex Carter sifted through a mountain of documents. Alex had a reputation for exposing hard truths, and something about the hotel, the whispers of discrimination and the manager's behavior toward Maya, didn't sit right with him. He followed his instincts, which led him to the hotel's old records stored in a dusty basement archive. The air was thick with must and history as Alex ran his fingers along the shelves. A bundle of yellow documents, bound by a faded ribbon, caught his eye. He carefully untied it and began to read. The papers chronicled a disturbing truth. During the 1950s and 1960s, the hotel had been a known gathering place for segregationist meetings. The name Reginald Thornton, the hotel's founder, appeared repeatedly in documents detailing support for policies aimed at preserving racial divisions. Alex's breath caught when he stumbled upon another name, Agnes Mort, Heather's great-aunt. Agnes hadn't just been a bystander, she'd been an active organizer, working alongside Reginald Thornton to resist integration efforts. The revelation sent a chill through Alex. The discrimination Maya faced wasn't a one-off incident, it was the echo of a long-standing legacy. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Alex shifted his focus to the hotel's current CEO, Regina Thornton, granddaughter of the infamous Reginald Thornton. Her name appeared in suspicious documents that hinted at continued, subtle biases in guest selection and treatment. The next morning, Alex marched into the hotel. The receptionist hesitated but ultimately led him to Regina Thornton's office. "Mr. Carter," she greeted with an icy smile, her southern accent polished and poised. "What brings you here today?" Alex placed the faded documents on her desk. "Care to explain your family's history with this hotel? And your connection to Heather Moore?" Regina's eyes flickered with surprise before her smile hardened. "The past is the past, Mr. Carter," she said coolly. "Digging it up won't change anything." "Maybe not," Alex countered, leaning forward. "But understanding it might stop it from repeating." Regina's facade cracked for just a moment. "I think you'll find," she said, voice low and deliberate, "that some legacies are meant to last." The veiled threat hung in the air, but Alex held her gaze, knowing he was onto something far bigger than a single act of discrimination. He left the hotel with one clear mission: to expose the systemic prejudice hiding beneath its polished surface. That evening, Maya received a call from Alex. "Maya," he said, his voice steady, "this wasn't just about Heather. It goes deeper. The hotel's roots are tangled in segregationist history, and Heather's great-aunt was part of it." Maya's heart sank, but then a familiar fire sparked in her chest. "What can we do?" "We tell the truth," Alex said. "Together." The next day, headlines blared across the city: "Legacy of Exclusion, the hotel's hidden history." The article detailed the hotel's dark past and Heather's actions, painting a clear picture of the systemic bias that had persisted for generations. Public outcry surged. Guests cancelled reservations. The hotel's stock plummeted. Regina Thornton released a carefully worded statement, promising reforms, but it was too late. Her family's legacy of hate was now public knowledge. Heather resigned amid the chaos, her tearful apology overshadowed by the undeniable truth: she hadn't acted alone. Maya stood with her father at a community meeting days later. Mayor Evans addressed the crowd, his voice resolute. "We must confront the past to build a better future. Discrimination, whether overt or subtle, has no place here. This isn't just about one hotel, it's about who we choose to be as a community." Maya's chest swelled with pride. She had found her voice, not just for herself but for everyone who had ever been made to feel like they didn't belong. As the crowd applauded, she locked eyes with Alex across the room and nodded. The battle was far from over, but the truth was finally out, and this time, they wouldn't let it be buried again. As Robert runs the hotel's product, Alex can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. At first, he assumes that Heather is just trying to make up for past mistakes. She's been too cooperative, perhaps hoping to clear her head. But as Alex digs deeper into the mystery, a shocking truth emerges. Heather's aunt, Agnes, was more than just Reginald's secretary. She was the hotel's manager before her death, a position quietly passed to Heather. And Heather? She's been playing the game ever since, using her position to make sure things stay the same at the hotel. She's essentially a mastermind of the chaos, someone who holds the hotel's assets in check, ensuring that the status quo never changes. The hotel has always been a microcosm of a racially divided society, a place where whites, blacks, and people of color all work under the same roof, but in their own separate corners. The classist forces at work in the hotel need a manager who can maintain a delicate balance of prejudice and prejudice. Heather has secured this role with a single goal: to help Mrs. Regina gain control of the city's lucrative development projects. Through charm, charisma, and ease, Heather has worked her way into positions of significant influence. She has played a long game and fought, and she has won. Alex, using the fever to reveal this, realizes that Heather's apologies and fighting backs have been a ruse, a cleverly directed fight designed to distract him from her. He knows he must act quickly to expose her true intentions before it's too late. But when Alex confronts Heather, she doesn't let her guard down. Instead, she reveals that she's not the only one with a secret. Naturally, Alex feels the weight of the changing situation. He knows he can't handle this alone. He needs someone with influence, someone who can help him weather the coming storm. His first move? He contacts Maya, the mayor's daughter, who has been at the center of the controversy surrounding Heather's actions. Maya's reaction is shock, then inward, when Alex reveals the hotel's dark past and Heather's connection to the proposed racial profiling program. She takes the bait, but knows her father, the mayor, will be horrified as well. Together, Alex and Maya decide to take the evidence to the chief. They schedule a meeting, and Alex lays it all out: the hotel's dark history, Heather's family's ties to racial segregation, and her manipulative behavior. The mayor is furious, deeply betrayed by Heather's actions and the hotel's efforts to hide the truth. He knows something has to be done, and fast. Just when Alex thinks he's uncovered every layer of deception, the mayor drops a bombshell. The next day, a meeting convenes that will change everything. With the room packed, he announces that the city is terminating its contract with the hotel, effective immediately. The only way the hotel can continue to operate within city limits is to remove Heather from her position as manager. And then the unexpected happens. "I am pleased to announce," the mayor said with a proud smile, "that Alex, our intrepid investigative journalist, will assume the role of hotel manager." Alex's mouth fell open. He had spent months uncovering the truth, focused only on glorifying Heather, but this was completely unexpected. "But I am a journalist, not a hotel manager," Alex stammered, his mind racing to process the task. The mayor chuckled warmly. "Alex, he is a man of many talents. I have every confidence that he will bring the same corruption and integrity to this new role that he brought to his reporting." The room erupted in noise, but Alex felt as if he had just stepped into a surreal dream. In a moment of relief, he was uncovering the hotel's darkest secrets. Let's deal with the next one. He's on the other side of the investigative life, as the new manager of the hotel. Heather, standing to one side, met Alex's eyes with a sweet, almost patronizing smile. "Congratulations, Alex," she said, her voice soft and gentle. "I'm sure you'll do a wonderful job." Maya, standing proudly beside her father, spoke up. "Today marks a new beginning, a beginning of healing, reconciliation, and justice. The lies that have plagued our city for so long are finally being exposed. I want to thank Alex for his tireless dedication to uncovering the truth, and I want to thank my father for his compassion in taking action." As Maya's words echoed through the room, the crowd erupted in applause. The city had been shaken to its core, but it was on the road to healing. The truth had been revealed, and the pieces were finally falling into place. Regina Thorne, the hotel's CEO, had issued an apology, pledging to make amends for the hotel's dark history. But for Alex, this moment was just the beginning. With the weight of history on her shoulders, Alex took on a new role as hotel manager, determined to ensure that the hotel would be a place of truth, equality, and justice. But as he looked around the room, he couldn't shake the feeling that the game wasn't over yet. Heather had disappeared into the darkness, but Alex knew she was still out there, and he was ready for whatever came next.